long time ago, we were getting popular throughout the Midwest, but we'd never been to California. In our first tour to California, it went really well, and that's a whole other thing in itself. But we got up to Seattle, and the guy that was supposed to book the gigs in Seattle quit answering his phone. We were so far away from Dallas, we knew that we were going to lose money at this point on this whole thing. But we were up there in Seattle, and back in those days, it was before cell phone contact list. I had everybody's contacts on little card files. I had a little card file, and I pulled out the guy's card and to look at his number that he was no longer answering. And I realized, hey, look, we have this guy's address. Let's go to his apartment. So we did. We went to this guy's apartment, and some big redheaded guy answered the door, and he looked down at us and he said, "No, he's not here. He skipped out owing all of us at least $1,000 in back rent." He said, he pretty much owes everybody in Seattle money. If you know where he is, we'd like to know too. And we looked up the guy and we said, "Can we stay here?" And they did. They let us stay on their living room floor for 3 nights. And we were very grateful for that. But he was a bartender, so he was somewhat well connected, which reminds me, tip your bartenders because they're a cog in this wheel. But anyway, he comes in that third day, and he said, "Okay." He said, "Listen, I made some phone calls." He said, "They can't pay you anything, but there's a big showcase in downtown Seattle Saturday night at the Vogue Theater. They know it's going to be a sold-out packed crowd, but they think it might end early. And they said, if it ends early and you guys are there, they're going to throw you guys up and let you finish out the night." So we're saying, hey, thank you. That's a pretty sweet deal. And it ended up being even better than that because the last band finished way earlier than anticipated. It was a packed house of sweaty grunge rockers. And here we come with our little haircuts, and they didn't know what to think about us at first, but we really won them over. And it was this crazy grunge rock scene. They were moshing, and there was a girl puking. It was cool. We were playing, and I was smiling. People were smiling back. And then all of a sudden, I looked up, and all of a sudden, nobody was smiling. All of a sudden, everybody was looking at Jimbo, and they all had this look on their face like... And I was thinking, what the heck's going on? I looked over there, and his bass, he'd broken a string, so one of the strings was hanging all loosey-goosey off the big bass. He was continuing to slap on his remaining strings, but as he's slapping the bass, there was blood going everywhere. Blood, blood, blood. I mean, by the time I noticed, the blood was pooling on the floor. The bass and him were covered in blood. There were some girls right in front of him that they had blood splatter on their face. And I was thinking, oh, good Lord, what is going on here? Well, we were playing the song Psychobilly Freakout, and you just heard it a minute ago. It has breaks, and so I was thinking, when I saw that, I was thinking, man, I got to play the licks that get us into this next break, and we have to quit playing altogether, or Jimbo's going to bleed to death over here. And what had happened is he had broken a string, and in the heat of battle, I guess, to get the string out of his way, he just decided to rip it off with his bare hand, and it didn't go anywhere. It just gashed his finger down to the bone. He just had like a gurgling, bloody piece of meat hanging off his finger. And I was getting queasy, but anyway, so I played the licks. I got us into the break, and the whole room went silent, and I went over there and I said, "Man, are you okay?" And he completely ignored me. And he picked up the bass and walked right in front of me like I wasn't even there. Brought the bass right up in the center of the stage in the brightest light. And then he took the bass and he planted it like a flag on the North Pole. Then he held up his right hand that was glistening blood all the way to his dripping elbow. Then he made a cross in blood on his face like this. And I'm standing back here thinking, where is he going with all this? And then after what seemed like an eternity, he finally looked over his shoulder at me and he just said, "Go." And I knew what he meant, so I said, "It's a Psychobilly Freakout." And we kept playing, Blood was going everywhere, but we really won over Seattle that night. But what we found out later is that right behind the Blood Splatter Girls were the two owners of what would become the important grunge rock record label, Sub Pop Records, and we got a record deal off that gig. And Jimbo didn't bleed to death. So anyway, he's all the way from Muy Fabulosa, Deer Park, Texas. Let's have a warm Ozark welcome for Nature Boy Jimbo. All right, we're going to do the Jimbo song right now. Do it again. The gallows and let's let that face. J-I-M-B-O. Slam bass bones under the middle. J-I-M-B-O.